Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining today's live webinar. As you know, we have a special webinar today, and we are broadcasting from Cannes. Although I'm in London, and I have two special guests today to talk about Cannes Film Festival and as well as their work. So today we have Alex Di Cuffa and as well as Khan Schoenfeld. Hello, both of you. How are you?
Very, very well. It's a beautiful day in Cannes, and we're both not getting terribly much sleep because there's so much going on all the time, and you sometimes don't know what to choose. There's a party, there's films, there's really interesting talks. So the tyranny of choice. But that's a nice problem to have, don't you think?
Yeah, 100%.
So, Alex, to understand your background a little bit, because we had an event on Friday introducing Carl's and his work with Cannes and all other aspects. Can you please introduce yourself a little bit about your work and why you are in Cannes?
Yeah, so hello everyone, my name is Alex Di Cuffa. I'm a writer director, and I've been working in the industry in various capacities for like 15 years. I've been an actor, assistant director, producer, writer, director, you name it, I've probably done it. The last couple of years I've been focusing on writing and hopefully directing my debut feature film, which is called Civilized Nation. I met Carl a couple of years ago when he was recommended to me as a script coach, mentor, etc. And he helped me write and develop the project and kind of taught me the ins and outs of, writing, because I'd never written a feature before. I'd only done like a couple of shorts and wanted to understand structure and all those sorts of things a bit more. And he was a great guiding light to kind of get me to the point of actually finishing the script, because for someone who has dyslexia, dyspraxia, ADHD, it takes a lot to kind of sit down and write something for a long period of time. But having Carl sort of standing over me being like, I'm looking forward to your 10 pages next week, was a great motivator. And that was finished writing about 2 years ago. I've been developing the script and feature since. We now are in quite a good position. We've got 20% of our funding, 3 named cast attached. The script has done well in a couple of competitions. It's won a couple of pitch awards and placed in a couple of screenwriting contests. And now we're here in Cannes trying to get the rest of our funding. We've had some great meetings so far with some very interested parties. Hopefully they're going to give us the rest of the money that we need and partner up with us to make this film into a reality.
It's fascinating the way you just described. You probably, I'm not sure that you know that he was my teacher when I was in undergraduate degree, and I learned a lot of things that I still implement them. So in anything that I do, I have few role models. One of them is Carl, and another one was Gillian, and all those things, the learning and implementing them to our actual work is really contributing. So thank you very much, Carl. It's my pleasure to talking to you and as well as Alex today. So my understanding on regarding Cannes Film Festival, it could be very much crowded or it could be very much exclusive, both things. So in relation with the inclusivity and as well as engagement from your perspectives, how you managing them? Because sometimes it's going to be very difficult to reach the directors or actors you are looking for, and as well as time consuming. How you managing them?
It's preparation, really. If you just arrive here cold, that might work if you know a lot of people in the industry and you just sort of walk through here and say hello to the people you know. And that's what some people do who've got decades in the industry. And I can sometimes walk here. There's a Palladi festival over there, and you can sort of first walk past all the stands of the sales agents, then you go down to the conference center and so on. And sometimes it can take me 2 hours just to walk what's really five minutes because I run into people, and sometimes it just takes five minutes. But the key is when you come here for the first time is you start weeks in advance,
Yeah.
don't you? That's something that we talk about in the coaching and in the script development. Whilst you're writing the script, you already start thinking about who did you want to talk to, because those people you're thinking about, they're probably here. So when you prepared for your Cannes trip, apart from the tickets and the toothbrush and the sun cream, sort of, what else did you prepare?
Well, it was a real mixed bag for us because we'd never been to Cannes before. So we didn't really know what to expect. We'd, read a couple of documents about how to survive in Cannes, and then you were kind of gracious enough to give me some advice as well. But it really kind of kicked off when my producing partner, she didn't actually get a festival badge, which is what I've got. So we had to get her a Marche de Film badge, which then introduced us to Sanando, and opened up a world where we were like, these are the people we want to talk to. And we hadn't really realised that there was a singular place we could go to try and get in touch with them. So over the course of about a week, I think we sent well over 150 emails.
Good,
Out to people
so that people know how much work it is.
Yeah. Oh no, it's been two of us for weeks prepping for Cannes, researching things, and we still kind of almost felt unprepared when we got here because we've been so focused on the business side of Cannes, we forgot to book any screenings or any talks or anything. But it paid dividends. We've had nearly 20 meetings, or we will have by the time we leave. And it's been really educational. And even in the first sort of 6 or 7 hours that we were here, we had an education on what Cannes was and how crazy it is, how busy it is, but also how flexible it is to be able to just walk up to somebody and start talking to them and make a connection.
Yeah. And that's absolutely unique, I think. I mean, a lot of these people, even people who walk past us, some of them might just have written a script like Alex and sort of trying to find a producer, trying to find money. And there's also Oscar winners. Sort of everybody mixes, and when you recognize somebody, and of course the key is knowing their work. If you don't watch the kind of stuff you want to make, then it's very difficult to talk to that person. But if you've seen their film, maybe their recent film, I mean, everybody here is creative. So as creatives, we know we're always as good as our last project. And if you walk up to them and just say, "Hey, I really loved your last film. I thought I recommend it because it's this and that and so on. What are you up to now?" It flows quite easily, and then eventually they also ask you also, because they also get a little bit bored, just talk about themselves and their own films. And I want to find out what fresh talent is coming up, and they're gonna ask you, and that's where you want to be, and that's based on starting when you write, who should be in it, who should produce it, so on, and then implementing that plan here. So out of the 150 emails, how many people did you get back to you?
Oh, quite a few. I think we probably had maybe 30 responses, and we got about, like I said, about 15 meetings out of that. And then sort of over the course of actually being here, we managed to kind of get 5 or 6 more meetings, which as a kind of return rate, maybe it's nearly 10%. We're quite pleased with that. Normally
that's good.
Yeah,
you've done well. You
2%.
write good emails. Maybe you should do a seminar on writing these kind of emails, because that's a good average.
Well, I have to give credit where credit's due. My producing partner, Kate, she drafted the emails and actually had a comment back from one person who received the email. What a nice email it was. He said, "I had to give you a meeting because it was such a nice email." Whereas if it was me, I'd be like, "Please can we meet?"
Yeah.
I'm Alex.
Yeah. So that's how you learn, and it's quite important when you write these emails that you make them quite specific. You don't just copy and paste, but really show how you identify there's an overlap, there's maybe a connection between all the work that you've done, and your little low budget feature film, but there's some kind of connection point that it's worth meeting.
And this question is both Carl and Alex. As an indie filmmaker, there are some you have to cross some boundaries and as well as a struggle. Okay, uh, you are on Cannes now. How prepared you were before you thinking to go to Cannes Film Festival? Can any indie filmmakers on their early, stage, they can go over there and contribute the way you did?
I'm not quite sure I understood the question. I
You know,
mean, there's
as
also
a
there's a
indie filmmaker, okay, you trained Alex in a certain extent levels, but those
yeah
people, they do not have any training. They're indie filmmaker.
yeah.
If they go to Cannes, will they get the similar thing that Alex has experienced already?
Um, yeah, but Alex is also going for the first time, and we've prepared. Who are the kind of people, what kind of deal he needs to offer them, so they're attracted to it. So that's why I think if there are other filmmakers out there who also want to be here like Alex, they have to think about how they can join in. If they have a bit of experience, they can get a filmmaker accreditation. Otherwise, as Alex just said, for his producing partner, he had to buy a badge, and you have to do that a few weeks before. I think that they close this, or it becomes more expensive. I think now it's twice as much. So you have to buy that badge, and you go on Sinando onto that website. Well, I also use LinkedIn quite a lot because some people find their inboxes are very very full. And sort of on LinkedIn, they may not know me, but they can see what I can do, who I am, very very quickly. So I use sometimes LinkedIn, and again, that's something that you need to prepare over years, because if you have the kind of profile, if you're connected maybe to other people that this producer or this financier knows, maybe because you've promoted their stuff and you sort of have struck up conversations on social media, then they are much more open to take a meeting with you. But yeah,
Oh,
that's all preparation. And there's also, if anybody wants to do a start, there's also some blogs about it. I mean, if you just sort of Google what's it like attending the Cannes Film Festival or Berlin Film Festival, so sort of some of these great ones. There's people writing blogs about it, telling you to take sun creams and good shoes, and anything you want to add.
Yeah, no, the good shoes is really important. I've certainly learned that lesson. I think anyone can come to Cannes, and you can. There are different Cannes experiences. I have a friend here at the moment who's basically here on holiday,
mhm.
having a bit of a social time. And then there are other people like us who are here for much more business purposes. But what I've discovered is what you put into Cannes is what you get out of it. If you put a lot of effort in, and you don't necessarily have to have any training, you don't have to be experienced. We're here for the first time with the help of some gracious individuals giving us advice beforehand. No matter the amount of advice you get, you're never fully prepared. So you come, you experience it, and then hopefully it impacts the next time you come, and you kind of understand the mega world that is Cannes. There's so much here to do. You could never possibly do it in 20 years. So it's just, anyone can come, anyone can have a good time, and there's different versions of Cannes that people can do.
That's true. So some people come, and that's how I've started to go to film festivals. I started to go to the Berlin Film Festival quite a lot just after being a student, and I watched 5 films per day.
Mhm.
And sometimes you get to speak to the filmmakers, and you learn how filmmakers talk. It's very important to see sort of what is everybody's interest, and sort of how do they get their projects made and so on. So I soaked all that up, and I was always, when I was at that festival, I was then going past stands like here where people sit in booths. Oh, all these people, they sit there talking about the films that they're going to make, watching one film after another. But a few years later, I was sitting there in a hotel, having these kind of meetings. And I was thinking, oh, I wish I could watch a movie again because I haven't not been here for 3 days and I haven't had a chance. So but that's sort of become quite normal now. I mean, the first few days for me are quite busy with meeting writers who I work with through the online screenwriting academy. Sometimes meeting new ones, and people are reaching out and want to talk to me to see. And I'm I'm quite available. There's also book meetings through the website. Um, and then also watch some films. So that will come after, let's say, the load of the meetings. The meetings are done. There's some fantastic talks. That's also a good way to meet people, like the AI summit where we broadcast from the last time, where you and there's 5 talks like that. There's different stages, different beaches that are going on at the same time. And you can just sit there, listen, and then you talk to your neighbor. What did you think of that panel? Was it nonsense, or did you have any insights? So that's how you meet people. Also do the same with films. People love talking about films. Everybody hears them. Have you seen this? Or so many different opinions. What do you think? Because here careers are made. I've seen some directors who had a great start here, and have been celebrated ever since, and also careers died.
Mhm.
Yeah, when everybody wants a ticket to a film because it's so anticipated and everybody's disappointed, their career is over. So it's exciting to be part of that, conversation.
Thank you, Carl, and thank you, Alex, and to everyone. You are watching today live webinar from Cannes Film Festival, and we have Alex and Carl, and I'm Dr. Shah Siddiqui. So the next question I wanted to ask Alex, I know that you are developing a script, screenplay, and Carl is supervising that. Can you tell the audience a bit more about that particular film that you wanted to get funding for?
So just repeat the end of the question.
About your film. Tell about your film, the kind of
Okay.
project,
Yeah.
what it is.
So it's a thriller horror set in a dystopian Britain, sort of 10 years in the future, where capital punishment has returned to the UK and been localised to individuals. So if someone commits a crime against you or a family member, then you can take retribution upon them under a new Government Act. And the Government Act was kind of invented by the government as a way to save money and get people out of prisons and kind of get them into graves a bit quicker. So it's a contained, low budget film with about 300k budget, and we've got 3 main actors, and the majority of it's kind of in one location.
Mhm. And yes, Carl, you wanted to add.
Yeah, I just want to say, it's also shows you a lot about sort of story development, how that goes, because let's say when we first talked about it, it looked, it sounded really strange and dystopian, and it's mainly just sort of a fantasy, a dystopia, as a very remote warning, because let's say all the sort of legal structures and so on were quite solid. But now you see how a country like the US has changed very, very quickly. So I think now everybody feels a lot less confident about the solidity of legal structures, and let's say the developed nations that are sort of the rock in the rock sea of global politics, sort of crumbling very quickly. So that's also shows sort of how storytellers like Alex are sort of like the canary in the coal mine, how Alex sort of picked that up sort of came with me with that idea at a time when it maybe sort of felt a little more fanciful and remote, whereas now he's now finding collaborators sort of for this project, which has become a lot more poignant because it feels much closer to us, and I think that's also shows how sometimes people here in the audience today, you may have an idea that a lot of people find quite weird or so, but sometimes you just have to move forward, write it into a beat sheet, a treatment, a step outline, and the screenplay, because you maybe picked something up that sort of matches with the changes in the world that other people that haven't really manifested yet. But that's what artists do. That's what creators do. They have a nose for that. And then the work that we do is then sort of developed in a way that an audience can understand it, that they can feel for it, that the film will become an exciting experience. So I think it's a good example. Sometimes you just need to get started, even if you feel my God, is there going to be a place for this in the world?
Yeah, and interestingly, if you remember, Carl, you asked me to write a history of the world.
Yeah.
So I did a 10-year history building up to the point where the movie starts, and I listed a bunch of things that happened every year that made England fall kind of into the state it was in. Half of those things have already happened. The cost of living crisis has happened, the Queen has died, all those things that can destabilise a country have actually already come true ahead of my schedule. And so it kind of, some of the conversations I've had with people have been, oh, well, actually, this feels a lot closer to home now. It doesn't feel so distant. It doesn't feel 10 years away. It feels 5 years away. So it's so interesting how, I had an inkling a couple of years ago that this might happen, and its art has started to imitate life, sort of thing.
And it shows the importance that kind of work was. Well, like with some projects, we need to talk about the characters foremost, because they will tell us what the project wants to be. And here it was really the world that we started with, and that really created then the trajectory. With sometimes it's a structure, so it's always a different aspect of the project that leads. But that's been in a project that's sort of like in a tradition like Jules Verne and Orwell and so on. That world and having that coherence to the world is very, very important, because an audience can feel if there's something slightly off and things are in the world that don't really quite match or not really relevant. So that's why that's sort of the foundation you want to build, is the world of the story. What are the rules? What happened? What has happened? How do people respond? How do people live differently, react differently, talk differently?
And when you talk about that you're planning for maybe in the future, so in relation with the present and linking them with the future, if you script, you need to wait maybe a year or maybe sometimes even more. Do you need to change the script a lot if when you're going for a production, or you just do whatever you have planned to do?
At the moment, it's still kind of, the script is still true to the first draft that I finished a couple of years ago. There have been changes, there have been tweaks, but I haven't changed anything based on real world stuff. I may have changed things based on feedback I had from individuals, but I personally haven't changed anything. I did do a short film a couple of years ago where we did change a couple of references because we referenced a public figure, and that public figure, something happened to them in society, and so we took that reference out just to kind of keep ourselves out of any trouble. But for this project, nothing much has really changed. The world it's flexible enough that it's still far enough ahead of us that, and I very on purposely fictionalize the world. So as an example, rather than saying, oh, we're listening to BBC Radio, we're listening to a new Warwickshire radio, which isn't a real thing, and I was very careful not to kind of point any fingers at any individual within the world, because I didn't want it to be about those individuals. I didn't want it to be about our world now. I wanted it to be about the world it could be,
Mhm.
So yeah, no kind of major changes there for me.
And that sometimes happens. I mean, I've worked on scripts where that there is a sort of unique vision for Alex as a storyteller and filmmaker, and then we'll need to bring that into script form so that that can be shared with finances and actors and cinematographers and so on. That can be one way of working of just making that unique vision work. So that's also for, I think, our audience to reflect on, um, to think about, what kind of storyteller are they? Can you see the film in your head already? And can you start writing down what it is that you see? That's already really very helpful. Whereas, well, other stories come from commissions. Maybe a producer or director said, "Oh, can you write me a story about this?" Um, or there's also sort of the pure screenwriters who maybe have a idea that or a character or a dramatic situation or an image. Sometimes some people start with an image, um, that they want to turn into a film, and then producer and director come on board, and you have these discussions, and then the script is a little bit it is a little bit different, because it becomes like a contract of these people say, this is a film that together we want to make, and we want to go in it with hopefully all having the same kind of film, or close enough film in our head. The sort of the writing of the script with the input from the director, the producer, and maybe financiers, maybe actors even. All these people, makes refines this contract, and everybody says yes, this is the kind of film we want to make. So that a screenplay can be um, a different thing. It's always a different thing. It's always a work of art as well as a business plan. So you always do both.
Another question I just wanted to ask: how important it is for Alex to be partner with Carl, and how it is contributing? Because I think the viewer will understand from the internal collaboration, all of the things. So, in relation with Alex screenplay and collaborating with Carl, how it took the screenplay to the next levels.
So, as I said before, I didn't have an idea really of where to start. Writing a feature script is such a big undertaking. I kind of, if I'd have started on my own without speaking to Carl, I'd have just started writing on page one, and I'd have written without any structure. Talking to Carl, he gave me a structure of like, okay, you should start with this, and start with your log line, and then the synopsis, and then we'll get to a beat sheet, and then we'll get to a really big synopsis, and then we'll get to a treatment, which I found really kind of interesting and difficult, because I'd never done any of those things before. But it paid dividends later down the line, that I had all this information that Carl had told me to do, um, that then when I got to actually writing the script, I could write it in a timely manner. I had a structure there. Okay, I've that's that bit of the treatment, so I now move on to this bit, and I'll start writing that scene. And it was really helpful. And he introduced me to other screenwriters as well, which was really helpful to get not just his feedback but peer feedback as well. And it kind of he put me in the community that I needed to be in, the environment I needed to be in to become a writer. I didn't consider myself a writer before, but afterwards I felt like a writer, and I even said to my partner afterwards, actually, if someone came to me now and commissioned me to write a script, I felt 1,000% more confident to do so. Don't get me wrong, it probably still would have been terrible, and I've gone back to Carl being like, help. But it gave me the confidence and the kind of basic skills that I needed to sort of approach that and go through it. And Carl wasn't just my script coach; he was mentoring me on the business as well, and we've stayed in touch since. And like we've spoken about before, he helped prepare me a bit to come to Cannes, and what to expect and what to think about and all those things. So it's instrumental. mentorship as a general rule is so important, because it's kind of the duty of society where the generations who've been around a bit longer help those who are coming to Cannes for the first time, writing a script for the first time, tying their shoelaces for the first time. And I'm a kind of big advocate of passing on knowledge. And all we need in life is knowledge. And if someone has it and they can pass it on, then it helps everybody. And that's in a nutshell what Carl did for me. He gave me the knowledge I didn't have.
And also we were sort of experimenting with, I mean, first we had long discussions about sort of what's really the point of the story and why are we in that world. So, and from understanding what it is we try to achieve, we find the right tools for it. We then before writing the script, we discussed the beat sheet and we discussed the treatment, and you sort of developed your own tool. It was a bit like a beatment, we can call it.
Yeah.
So it's not like you must follow Carl's method or so, or borrowed from Paul Schrader's method, the guy with the taxi driver and so on. You must follow that particular method, but also through understanding what this really for, what this is about, what it's supposed to do, we then find the right tools in order to get that result.
That was a great explanation to Alex. Thank you very much. And I just have my last question. It's relating to the fun part of Cannes Film Festival. Did you bump to any top tier actress or producers or filmmaker, and how you feel?
Have you seen anyone?
I've only seen people from a distance. I saw Graham McTavish yesterday, who's a wonderful actor who I admire, but he kind of flashed past me. And I saw 𝐤𝐷𝐿 Jr. yesterday, which really excited me. And I started shouting, "Show me the money!" And my producing partner, she was like, "What are you talking about?" But I've not been fortunate enough to kind of meet or see anybody else so far.
Yeah, this year I haven't been near the red carpet, but I've been to parties. But I'm spending a lot of. I like to spend a lot of time with sort of new filmmakers, aspiring filmmakers. They're some of them look very glamorous. But I had sort of experience here. I've been pushed aside by Quentin Tarantino's bodyguard. I was waiting to get into a film. It was quite close to be actually let in, and then stopped. Everybody had to freeze. And then these bodyguards came. And then Quentin Tarantino emerged from a Porsche Cayenne and then sort of ran into the screening, and then they closed the door and said, "Complain." So that was my encounter with Quentin.
It's also like surreal. You think about those big top actors and actresses, and as well as producer, filmmaker, and when you see them in front of them, it's just like a surreal that okay, you cannot go in front of them in the barriers and all other things. Uh,
Yeah, my first Cannes, and I also had that beach where we broadcast from the other day at a party. I mean, then it was sort of still a lot more open than it is now. And I talked to Ben Mendes for half an hour. He
mhm.
was just there at a beach party with a drink in his hand. And it is, how, some of his friends, they're like, some of his films are like friends of mine, who I like to revisit. And sort of, that's my relationship to them. And sort of, we talked about the role of films in our lives. So, it was fascinating. I'm sure it was formative to be able to have that kind of conversation, long time back as a young filmmaker.
Thank you, Carl, and thank you, Alex. Do you want to add the last 1 minute to say anything to the audience?
Yeah, just don't be afraid to come to Cannes. I wish I'd come years ago, and I saw my friends come every year, and I felt like I didn't belong, um, because I didn't have a film, I didn't have a purpose. When in actual fact, anyone can belong here, and it's probably better to come when you don't have any pressure of a project or an ambition, just to experience it, get used to it, and then when you do have a project or something that you want to do here specifically, you understand the lay of the land a little bit more. But I'm a big believer in serendipity, and I was meant to come this year for the first time, and I've had a really great time, and I would certainly come back. even just on like a semi-holiday sort of situation. But yeah, I just want to encourage people, like, don't be afraid, get your accreditation and get out here.
And Carl, you wanted to say anything to the audience?
Yeah, it's start your preparation now. I mean, you're feeding your voice as a writer, and you're standing here when you arrive at a community like this, or even at a smaller festival, national festival. There are wonderful small festivals all over the world. Your standing is determined by what you watch and how you think about what you watch. So try to feed yourself good stuff. You know, as a screenwriter, you are what you eat. You know, if you watch crap telly, then it will be very difficult to to watch something good. So sort of start that now by watching really good stuff, something that nourishes your creativity, and that when in a few months or in a year, you might run into the director or might run into an actor you've seen in that work, and then you'll be so glad that you watched these films that they're in, so you can ask them all the questions you have.
Thank you, Carl, and thank you, Alex, and thank you everyone for joining today's live broadcast from Cannes, and we will try to bring more lives, as you know that we are working together, and you know that Carl is specifically dedicated to his online screenwriting academy. So if you're thinking of a script that you need TLC, some professional opinions and working with Carl's and his team, and as well as Pierre and all other people, this is the time that you should prepare to go to next year Cannes, because it takes time for preparation, like Alex said, and all other things. So we're going to be having more lives with Carl as we have started. And thank you very much, Carl, for your time from Cannes, because I know it's very busy, but in this busy time, you have contributed 2 lives. So I'm very grateful and pleased for both of you. And thank you, everyone. See you on our
Thank you
next
for
live.
hosting us.
Yes, thank you for your time, Alex and Carl. Bye-bye, and see you next time.
Bye bye from Cannes.